Red Bull has made a decision that will change everything. After 11 disastrous races, over 200 points behind Mercedes in the constructors' standings, and 2 extremely serious incidents caused by the faulty Macarena wing, the Milton Keynes team is seriously considering completely abandoning development of the RB22 to concentrate all resources on the 2027 project. But the most shocking part of this story is not the decision itself. The most shocking part is what is happening between Max Verstappen and his own team. Because Red Bull, in private conversations, believes that the main problem is not the car. The main problem is the way Verstappen drives it. You heard that right. Red Bull is accusing its own driver of being too fast for the car they themselves designed. And this accusation is creating an internal rift that could change the team's fate forever. Let's start with the situation on track, because the numbers tell a brutal story. Red Bull is the only team among the top 4 that has not yet won a single race in the 2026 season. Mercedes, Ferrari, and McLaren have all secured at least 1 victory. Red Bull has 0. Verstappen sits in 6th place in the drivers' standings, 110 points behind championship leader Kimi Antonelli. For a 4-time world champion who, just 2 seasons ago, dominated every single race, these numbers represent an unprecedented humiliation in his career. Red Bull has gone from being the unbeatable team to becoming the 4th force in the championship, and the decline shows no sign of slowing down. If this news is leaving you speechless, subscribe to the channel and leave a comment, because what I'm about to reveal to you about the internal fracture at Red Bull is even more incredible. Verstappen's frustration has reached levels never seen before. During the Belgian Grand Prix at Spa-Francorchamps, the Dutchman compared his car's behavior to that of a Formula 3. Not a metaphor, not a rhetorical exaggeration. A direct comparison to a lower category, spoken over the radio by the most important voice in Formula 1. At Silverstone, after yet another retirement caused by the rear wing failing, Verstappen harshly attacked the car, calling it impossible to drive. At Budapest, a new problem with the rear wing sent him off track for the 3rd time in 3 consecutive races. 3 incidents in the same part of the car at 3 different circuits. These are not simple complaints from a dissatisfied driver. These are public statements that are creating a deep fracture between the champion and the team that led him to win 4 world titles. But here's the plot twist nobody expected. According to inside sources reported by F1 Insider, Red Bull believes in private conversations that Verstappen is driving too fast for the current capabilities of the RB22. The team believes the Dutchman is pushing the car beyond its structural limits, and that this is part of the reason why the Macarena wing keeps failing. In practice, Red Bull is suggesting that their own fastest driver is too fast for the car they themselves built. It's a paradoxical and potentially explosive situation for the team's internal dynamics. This information could represent the point of no return in the relationship between Verstappen and Red Bull. Like this video because the next revelation covers the comparison between 2 completely different eras of Red Bull and explains why Verstappen can no longer make the difference. There's an analysis circulating in the paddock that hits like a punch to the gut for anyone who knows Red Bull's history. According to experts in the Red Bull designed by Adrian Newey and managed under the supervision of Helmut Marko, Verstappen was constantly able to make the difference. The car was built around his driving characteristics. The driver's feedback was listened to and integrated into the car's development. Every update went through a meticulous process that put Verstappen's feel at the center of technical decisions. The relationship between Newey's design genius and Verstappen's superhuman instinct was the perfect combination that produced 4 consecutive world titles. When that synergy worked, no one in the paddock could compete with Red Bull. In today's Red Bull, under the technical direction of Pierre Wache, the situation is completely different. Verstappen rarely manages to make the difference with the car. His feedback is no longer given the same weight as before. The car's development seems to follow a direction that doesn't take the driver's specific needs into account. And the result is there for everyone to see. A world champion, struggling to break into the top 5 instead of dominating races the way he did just 2 seasons ago. The gap between the Newey era and the Wache era has never been so evident and so painful for Verstappen. The question everyone in the paddock is asking is whether Pierre Wache is really the right man to lead the technical department of a team that aims to return to the top of the world. The results so far suggest the answer might be no. Meanwhile, the FIA has announced significant regulatory changes for the 2027 season that make the decision to abandon the RB22 even more logical. The split between internal combustion engines and electric batteries will go from the current 50-50 to 60-40 in favor of combustion. Power will increase by 20 kilowatts, and drivers will be allowed to use 5% more fuel. In addition, the FIA intends to significantly reduce downforce after analysis by Nicholas Tombazis revealed that cornering speeds were enormously higher than expected when the regulations were written. This means that current aerodynamic designs will become largely obsolete, and every team will have to completely rethink its development philosophy. Comment below if you think Red Bull is making the right choice by abandoning 2026, or if you believe they are making a mistake that could cost them next year's championship too. Opinions in the paddock are completely divided. According to experts, these regulatory changes are equivalent to two major update packages concentrated into a single regulation change. For Red Bull, this represents an enormous opportunity. If the team manages to get ahead of its rivals in developing the 2027 project, it could find itself with a significant competitive advantage right from the first race of next season. But to do that, it has to completely sacrifice the rest of the 2026 season. No more investment in the RB22. No more attempts to fix the Macarena wing problems. All human, technical, and financial resources concentrated exclusively on the future. It's a risky approach, but one with historical precedent in Formula One. Several teams have sacrificed entire seasons to focus on major regulatory changes, and some of those bets have led to absolute dominance in the following seasons. But this decision carries an enormous risk that directly concerns Verstappen's future in Formula One. The Dutchman has repeatedly threatened to retire from the championship due to his dissatisfaction with the current regulations. He has not yet publicly committed to Red Bull for the 2027 season. The situation is clear and worrying for any Red Bull fan. Verstappen wants to fight for the world title next year and will only stay with the team if Red Bull can prove to him that the 2027 project is competitive. Verstappen has also raised an issue that goes beyond Formula One and concerns the very future of motorsport in his own country. The Dutchman has publicly called on the Netherlands government to step in and support motorsport, pointing out that the sport's popularity in the country could rapidly collapse without adequate institutional support. He used Germany as an example, a country that once had numerous Formula One drivers, a Grand Prix, and a huge fan base, and that today is experiencing a rapid decline in interest in motorsport despite Mercedes dominating the championship. He pointed to Spain as a positive example of a country that continues to invest in motorsport with excellent results, producing competitive drivers and keeping a Grand Prix on the calendar. Red Bull finds itself at a historic crossroads. On one hand, the possibility of sacrificing a season to build a winning future. On the other, the risk of losing the strongest driver in the world if the 2027 project doesn't live up to expectations. Verstappen won't wait forever. His patience has a limit, and his public statements show that limit is getting closer and closer. The second half of the 2026 season will be the most critical period in Red Bull Racing's recent history. Every decision made in the coming months will determine whether the most successful team of the last decade manages to rise again, or whether the decline that began this year becomes permanent and irreversible. Verstappen's future and Red Bull's future depend entirely on what happens in the coming weeks. See you in the next video.